What's up everyone? In today's video we're going to be looking at this fun to fly drone, the Hover X1. And while it may look all small and cute, it means business. We're going to go through what it is, how best to use it, and all of the pros and cons, so let's check it out.
Now you guys know me, I like my nice cameras, I like my toys, I like my ways to get interesting shots in my footage. But one thing you've never seen in any of my videos are drone shots. And that's because I find it really awkward to ride with the drone in your bag or whatever. It looks goofy, then you gotta get the controller out to get your shot and all stuff like that. It always just seems too much work. So when 00 got in touch with me about their Hover X1, a fully autonomous drone that could follow you around on its own, you didn't have to use a controller to control it, and it could just land in the palm of your hand, I was very, very interested. Another good thing about the drone, it can fold up and boom, straight in your pocket. So no need to carry around a bag and look goofy in all the shots. Again, you can control it with just the buttons on the machine. So we choose a mode, we tell it to take off, it counts to 3, autonomously takes off and starts tracking it. Then we can just get on the bike. If we can clip in first time on camera, there we go. We get on the bike. And yeah, let's go see what this can do.
So before we get too deep into this, I do want to say thank you to 00 Robotics for sponsoring this channel and sending over the unit for review. You guys know me, I love my camera gear, so when I had this opportunity, I jumped at it. As you saw from the intro the things you can do with this thing are amazing. I've been pretty blown away. I've had the unit for about 2 or 3 weeks now, but we had a huge rainy period here in Xiamen, so the amount of footage I've been able to get hasn't been loads. But in this video, I'll put some of the footage over while I'm talking and you can see some of the stuff that I got. So let's start out with what is it. So the Hover X1, I believe, is the second drone from the company called 00 Robotics. And yeah, their big thing is making small drones. So here, as you've seen before, the unit folds up to a super small, super pocketable, super light form factor. So in this form factor with the battery, just 125 grams. So if you're a weight weenie like me on the bike, you're not even going to notice this in your back pocket. And also the lightweight means it's a bit easier on regulations. So check the regulations where you live, but like in the UK at least, at 125 grams, like you don't need a drone license. You just need to register it online and then put a sticker on it with your phone number. So check the rules where you are because everywhere's different. But basically being 125 grams makes it a lot easier, a lot less troublesome to own. Speaking of the weight, 125 grams, as I said, with the battery, and the battery just pulls off like so. And then if you get it with a 2 battery pack, so you can put both the batteries in this little cradle to charge. When they're in this little cradle, USB-C charges up, Each battery takes like 35 minutes to charge, I think, and you can press the button on here to see how much charge each battery has. So usually if I'm shooting, I'll have one battery fully charged in the drone, the other battery in this pack in my back pocket, and if I get somewhere that has USB or whatever, I'll just charge the batteries up. So they'll say officially that the battery life is 20 flights. So because it's made for getting like, you know, short snapshots or whatever, they measure the battery life in these number of snapshots. So you can get about 20 shots with it. If you want that in terms of minutes, I did some experimenting that seems to be around 11, 12, 13 minutes of actual flight time, depending on what it is you're trying to get. But because literally it takes off from your hand and then it's following you, like you don't have any of the faffing around of trying to get in a position or whatever that you would have on a normal drone. So while 11, 12 minutes doesn't sound like loads, in my experience, it's enough. Like if you go out for a ride with this in your pocket and just take one of the battery, you're going to get more than enough footage for your ride. As you saw in the intro, the video quality I think is very good. You know, obviously you're working on a very tiny camera, very tiny sensor here, so I think what it puts out is impressive. You know, if you know, of course there are much better quality cameras on big, huge drones or whatever, but that's not going to fit in your pocket. So for the form factor, I think the image quality is great. It puts out 2.7K at 30 frames per second, or if you want to do some slow motion stuff like I showed in the intro, it can do 60 frames a second at 1080p. But for me, most of the time, I just leave it on 2.7K resolution, and that's enough. And again, while these little propellers are tiny, they do pack a punch. This thing can fly up to 7 meters per second, which is about 25 k's an hour. So if you're riding on a road bike, you know, most of the time on the flats you're doing maybe 30, 35 k's an hour, so it's not going to be able to keep up with you on the flats. But for me, where this shines is when you're in the mountains, you know, you're climbing up and this is just behind you getting the landscape. So if you're tanking it on the flats, it's not going to be able to keep up with you. But if you're in some amazing scenery or in an epic climb, it's going to be able to follow you, no problem. So let's briefly talk about using the unit. So really simple to use, really easy to fly. To turn it on, you just hold down the main power button, the green light comes on, it kind of calibrates the gyros or whatever, and then you're turned on.
Mode, follow.
So because there's no screen on the device and the whole thing is being able to use it without using your phone, you have these audio prompts to tell you what mode it's in. So it just told me it's in follow mode. So if I were to take off now, it'll just follow me around. But if I want to switch modes, I just press the mode button.
Orbit.
And now it's in orbit mode. Orbit mode is when it takes off and it does a lap around you. But even better, you can adjust the size of the orbit. And again, you don't need your phone. So you just long press the button.
2.5 meters, orbit.
And it tells me it's going to be doing a 2.5 meter orbit. You press it again.
4 meters, orbit.
You're in the 4 meter orbit. Press it again.
6 meters, orbit.
6 meter orbit. And if meters aren't your thing, in the app you can actually change the settings to be in feet. So whatever's clever for you. So the first mode is the hover mode. Basically, in hover mode, it does what it says in the tin. It just sits there and follows you. So it's kind of like a floating tripod. So cool if you want to get like a flyby shot, or if you just want to do a piece to camera. Yeah, so you put it in hover mode. So it'll keep hovering until you come back to it, put your hand underneath it, and it'll automatically land on your hand. That's the way that most of the flights are ended, by putting your hand under the unit and then it lands on your hand.
Zoom out.
The second mode is zoom out. So again, does what it says in the tin. It will take off from in front of you and then zoom out to reveal what's behind you, and then zoom back in. It'll make 2 videos of the zoom out and the zoom in. You can choose how far away the zoom out is, etc.
Follow.
Follow is probably the mode I use the most. Again, put it on your hand, it takes off, and then literally it just tracks you. So it'll fly behind you, and just wherever you go, it will follow you. You can choose the height that it follows from, and you can choose the distance that it follows from. That's all stuff you can play around with. The faster you go, the kind of like higher it goes, so it can be more adaptive to where you're going or whatever. But to me, that's where you get your cool shots, in the follow mode. So the way it's tracking you is literally just tracking you in the camera. But if you go out of frame, when you come back in frame, it'll recognize you again. So before, I had some like, you know, the DJI Osmo Pocket and stuff. Like sometimes on those things, when you leave the frame and you come back in, or you go behind a tree and you come out to the side, they stop tracking you. But not the case with the Hover X1. It remembers what you look like and tracks you. I set my son a goal of trying to run away from it, and it did a pretty good job of tracking him. Like Obviously, if you really do want to get away from it and you run underneath it or whatever, it will lose you. But in general, when you're riding around on the bike or you're running or you're doing anything, it does a very good job of following you. Next mode.
Orbit.
Orbit is what we said before. So again, it'll do a pan around of you. Again, you can choose the distance of the orbit, like the radius as it were, and you can choose the height of the camera as it does it. And yeah, you get some pretty epic shots on this one. I think the hardest thing about this one is choosing what kind of pose to do when it's doing its thing, but you know, you can get some pretty cool epic shots that take in the whole 360 degrees of scenery around you. So orbit is very cool.
Bird eye.
The next one is bird eye mode. Literally, it just looks down on you and goes all the way up and then comes all the way down. So similar to the zoom in, zoom out mode, but more vertical. I don't use this one too much, not my thing, but if you're in a place that has some nice scenery all around you, that could be a good way to take it in.
Custom. Dolly track.
So custom, this is kind of interesting. They put this custom mode in there because it means afterwards, as they update new modes in the firmware, you can choose what your custom mode is. So at the moment, I think there's 2 modes, and the mode that I use in custom mode is dolly track. And dolly track is basically what I used for the intro, where it just floats in front of you, and as you walk forwards, it tries to stay in front of you, shooting backwards towards you. Very cool for doing piece to cameras, as you saw in the intro, and yeah, smart stuff indeed. And then there's one more mode, which is like the manual flight mode, but we'll talk about as we talk about the app. So the app, the companion app for this, obviously I've said in all my videos, companion apps are always the make or break. And again, I'm happy to say the app for this is on point. It connects super fast, it downloads footage super fast, the firmware updates fast, it's all on point. You can go through the settings super easy, change what you want. They've got some tutorials in there to show you how to get the best shots out of it. It's very cool. But the best thing you can do in the app is the manual mode. So the manual mode, you connect the phone to your app, you can see what the camera can see, and you literally use the little joypads to fly it around. And this is how that looks from the app. So you can see here, I've got these little buttons here that I can turn left and turn right and pan around and all that good stuff. So hey, yeah, manual mode is pretty fun. And then when you're done flying, just bring it back down to you, bring it down, put your hand underneath it, and it lands. Done. I don't think it's kind of like the bread and butter of the drone. The whole thing about the drone is trying to get you simple shots, but the manual mode really lets you get some cool, like, establishing shots or some, you know, revealing shots of the locations you're at. So I've been using manual mode quite a lot to get some of the shots, and yeah, really impressed. As I said before, like, downloading footage from the drone is super quick. About a minute of footage takes about 10-15 seconds to download, so that's super quick. And then as soon as it downloads, it saves it to your phone's gallery, and so obviously you can then share it to YouTube or share it to your friends in WhatsApp or share it to whatever. Another cool feature about the phone is, so when this guy is flying around and you'll have the phone in your hand, it will actually use the phone's microphone to record your voice. So you can be getting a cool orbit shot and you can be talking into your phone. Later, when you download the footage from the drone to the phone, it will sync the audio. So the audio that you'll hear in the video file is the audio that was captured by your phone. And they have an AI algorithm to noise cancel out the sound of the drone, which does a really cool job, which means in the video you don't hear the annoying whine so much and you can hear yourself talking. Super cool feature. Obviously, you know, I'm Mr. YouTuber, so I'm always going around with DJI mic strapped to me, but if you're not that guy, if you just want to use the phone, it's a really cool way to get usable audio out of your drone files. But how to get the best out of the drone? So yeah, all of these things, every action camera or everything will only be as good as the environment that you're in. If you're in a super boring road going just super boring and straight, the footage is never going to be interesting for anyone. So if you live in an epic place, or if you're doing some rides at like sunrise or sunset, that's when you're going to get the best shots out of it. So with it being so portable, you can take it to those epic places, yeah? So when I used to roll around with my DJI drone or whatever in a goofy bag, I didn't want to take it out on like a 140K ride. But for me, the past few weekends, I've been doing 120, 130, 140K rides, and this comes with me on every ride because it's just in my jersey pocket, no problem. So yeah, tip number one, take it somewhere epic, take it everywhere with you. Even if you're going out with the family, with the kids, like, it's so small, just put it in the glove box, put it in a bag, whatever. Tip number 2, I'd say it likes light. All of these things are usually the same. You know, the more light you can throw at it, the better. If it's dark, the footage isn't going to look amazing, but like flying a drone at night isn't going to be recommended anyway. Number 3, I'd say, you know, use a mix of shots. Don't always use the same shots. So all the 5 different modes, which you can easily change between, use them all, and then later when you're editing, you can choose which ones to put in there. Obviously, every technology has its limitations, and this is no exception. I'll tell you some of those limitations now. Number 1, it doesn't like to go over water. So one of the ways that this is stabilizing itself is there's a camera or multiple cameras on the bottom looking down. And it does a really good job, like when it's windy or whatever, it's very good at staying still when it's trying to be still. But again, one of the ways it's doing it, it's looking down and looking at the ground. And so its goal is to make the ground not move, and then it knows it's not moving. However, if you were to fly over water, you've got waves on the water that are being blown across the water. It's going to look down at those waves and see them moving, and it thinks it's standing still, but it's moving with the waves. And that is going to be a surefire way to lose your drone. So do not fly over water. It tells you not to in the app. Make sure you listen to it because you will lose your drone. Also, because of that technology I was talking about, it doesn't like huge drops in altitude. So if you're on the 30th floor of a skyscraper and you fly out of the window, it's suddenly going to get very confused why the ground was moving fast and now the ground's moving slow. And again, it might freak out and do who knows what. I've not tested it, but again, all it tells you about this in the app, just listen to the advice. Huge winds, you probably don't want to fly it in either. I believe it's safe up to a 4.5, level 4.5 wind it can take, which is a pretty big wind. I had this out, follow me on windy days too, and it was fine, but again, don't go flying it out in a hurricane or a typhoon. One other thing as well that I tested, don't try let it take off while you're moving. So I tried wall riding along to make it take off. No, don't do it. It gets a bit confused and will go crashing off. But it's very durable because, hey, it's here, it survived, no problem. One thing I will say is there are no cameras on the back of the drone and stuff. So when you're going backwards or when it's in dolly mode, yeah, it's at your own risk. If you smash it backwards into a wall, it will hit that wall. And going forwards, it's pretty good at avoiding stuff. But yeah, if you hit something, it's going to crash. But yeah, as you can see, I'm flying through the triangle of this bike on the seat of my pants. And yeah, also flying in the office. Yeah, paper gets blown everywhere, etc., etc. But hey, it makes a good air conditioner if you just stand underneath it or whatever. But yeah, in general, just use your common sense. You know, don't go flying it over airports or military bases. Use your common sense, people. You know, don't lose your drone and don't get yourself into trouble. Pricing and availability. So as I'm recording this, there is still a few days left of the Kickstarter. They've got some deals in there. I'll put exact details about the pricing down below. But for me, I've been super, super impressed. Like, this is another cool thing to put in my video capturing arsenal. I think the price is around $300-400, you know, which is about the same as a normal high-end action camera, but this one can fly. So, you know, a bit of a no-brainer. I'm super, super impressed. I've also seen updates come in since I've had it for like 3 weeks. There's been 2 firmware updates, which have added to being able to choose the height of it when it's falling in and stuff like that. So they're actively working on it, actively supporting it. And over on Facebook, I think there's a Facebook group full of people flying it, and they've got all sorts of tips and tricks on there too. So I've been super impressed. I'm really thankful that 00 sent this out to me, and I'm sure you guys are going to be able to see lots of footage from this thing in my videos going forwards. If you are new here, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. Got lots more content coming soon. Usually I'm reviewing bike stuff, but I love cameras, I love making films, so you'll see lots of that here too. Behind me, my 3T with their L2 ERX. Quick look or review coming out soon. I've got about 2,000-ish, no, about 1,200 kilometers on this right now. It's been ups and downs, but I'll share that in the full video. Give this video a thumbs up. If you do end up buying one of these, tell them that Joe sent you, just so they know where you came from. And yeah, I've been enjoying this. Hope you enjoyed the video. China Cycling out.